Welcome to Backyard Cigars Studio Edition. And today we're going to talk about a topic that has probably been brought up more than once or twice in conversation with a fellow cigar brother of the leaf or sister of the leaf, and something that, if we haven't done research on, we've wondered about. Some of us. Now remember that when it comes to this topic, you have, I wouldn't say the majority of the world, but a good percentage of the world where Cuban cigars can be obtained legally without any problems. And the people who live there, obviously, whether they're paying a lot of money or not for the cigars, usually they are, you find that it's readily available. And perhaps not every regional edition and things like that are easy to obtain, but you get the idea. They have a whole lot more than what folks in the United States have. In the United States, cigar smokers have to be very smart about what or how they're going to purchase cigars online, specifically Cuban cigars. Because that's what we're talking about. How to find authentic Cuban cigars. And by no means is this the definitive video on the topic, because there are a lot of other channels that are giving a plethora of information and just an abundance of knowledge on this very same topic. So I encourage you to look at their videos as well and look at what they're saying, because things do change from year to year, month to month sometimes, in regards to how legit a gray market or black market, if you want to call it that, online purchase is. From one year to the next, things change. That's what I'm trying to get at. And so in the United States, we focus more on the gray market, not the black market. So in the gray market, basically you have sites, online sites, that will tell you that they're selling authentic Cubans. Sometimes you look and the prices look pretty reasonable. Then you see the shipping and it's out of this world. And other times the shipping is decent and the prices are okay, but you're wondering if you're getting the real deal and whether you're going to get shipped, the authentic Cuban cigar. And it's a big risk, because before you even get to the point of actually opening the cigars and knowing that they are authentic in however way or different manners there are for authenticating cigars. But apart from that, you have to worry that in some cases they could be seized at customs. That's just part of what goes into it. Uh, Again, if you're living in the United States, it's a different experience, especially a different mindset when you think of Cuban cigars. Some of the old timers in the United States that enjoyed Cuban tobacco in their cigars up until the 60s still have that passion for all Cuban and really still have that craving for that type of flavor profile, and they're gonna find a way, and they usually do. And I mean, I know one individual who smokes very fine Cuban cigars, and I asked him, "How do you get your Cuban cigars?" He said, "Well, I know a guy who knows a guy." That was what he said. And you know what? That's the answer that I got from a lot of other people. In many of these cases, there is a lot of trust involved, obviously, because you have to have this type of trust to build this relationship with this vendor. And then on top of that, you also have to possibly authenticate it yourself. Once you get your items, you have to take a look at them. In the case of most Cuban cigars, most of us that have been buying Cuban cigars for many years, or just cigars from certain places over the years, that you kind of get a sense that there isn't not many pesticides were used, and potentially there was no freeze process for the tobacco. In the case of Cuban cigars, I think that a lot of people feel that they need to freeze them when they receive them, And I'm no exception. I do it just for peace of mind. You know, can you buy them and not do the freeze process and be okay? Sure, I believe you can. But when you're spending X amount of dollars and you figure this isn't harming my cigars, put it in the, you let it acclimate outside. Once you get it from your shipment, let it acclimate to room temperature for a few hours, then put it in the refrigerator for a few more hours, then move it from the refrigerator to the freezer for 24 hours. And in reality, you probably only need about 8 hours, maybe even less. So after you do that, you put it back in the regular part of the refrigerator for several more hours, and then you take it out, leave it room temperature overnight, and the following day, integrate it into your humidor. And that's what a lot of people do. And again, I've said I do this as well when I buy cigars that are Cuban or even Puerto Rican cigars. I will freeze them and I will do this process. And like I said, it gives me peace of mind. This is believed to kill the beetles or any remaining beetle larvae that may remain. So it is something of a preventive way of, hey, avoiding a future catastrophe with. We don't even want one beetle, right? Let's face it. We don't even want to see that one little pinhole. That's just bad enough. And so, yeah, that's the one thing about receiving Cubans. And the other part, besides the seizing at customs, which could happen in many different countries, I think there's an apprehension as well because, hey, let's face it, there are so many great non-Cuban New World cigars that offer so much excitement within the cigar industry that you can be, content in just smoking the New World cigars and experiencing all of the different things from the different makers from tobacco in the Dominican Republic to Nicaragua, right? That is expected because the quality is high. But at the same time, there's an old world charm, right, to Cuba's tobacco and the fact that it's the motherland, and it holds a special place in a lot of cigar smokers' hearts. Cuban tobacco, at its best, is probably amongst the best tobacco in the world that there is. And that's just my opinion. I'm not saying you have to believe that. Listen, I'm a big Nicaragua fan. I think that you're almost neck and neck sometimes in terms of your cigar experiences with each of these tobaccos. But there is something a little extra special sometimes to some of the tobaccos that come out of Cuba and some of the lines. And it's intriguing. And as a cigar smoker, even if you just want to get the opportunity to try it a few times, I think it's worth it. But you have to be careful. You have to do your research. If you're going to go on a certain site, you have to research that site. Go on the forums, check the cigar forums, check the Reddit threads, and try to find out as much information as you can about that company, what they've been doing, how long they've been doing it, and then also, look for the obvious signs. If something appears to be too good to be true, it probably is. I know we've heard that a million times, but it applies so much to when you're looking at these cigar prices for Cuban cigars online. You just have to be very careful in the site that you're going to choose. Never mind the fact that you also got to use your credit card. Make sure that you have a trusty credit card, something reliable, so that if by chance you don't get your package or something happens, you can possibly file a claim and get a refund. Possibly. I don't know. But what I'm saying is it's always good to use a trusty credit card, right? I think that we can all agree with that. That's a good idea. But more importantly, where we're going to spend our hard earned cash and really be convinced and really be confident in that you are being provided with true, authentic Cuban tobacco. That's what you really want to know. And so I'm going to do this video where we're going to talk a little bit about some of the sites. And now there's a site called Cigar Analysis, and they do an analysis of the all of the sites online that are selling Cuban cigars or claiming to sell Cuban cigars, and they have a list of companies that they feel are legit. One is La Casa del Habano Noki, which is, I believe, based in Switzerland and has a very good reputation. I have made purchases off of that website. The shipping is about $20, so it's pricey, and I have had some issues with some of the wrappers not looking as good as they should, and but overall the service has been very decent. When I got in touch with them and let them know how I felt about it, it took a little long, but I expected that being where they're at. But I also expected sometimes for them to have been a little faster in their responses. But nonetheless, the experiences with that site were positive, and I have to say that everything looked pretty legit and pretty authentic. Everything smoked very well, with the exception of one punch cigar that I got that was, I believe, plugged because I had to poke it, and then I was able to enjoy it. And even then, after that, the wrapper started to just peel away, and it could have just been something in the shipping. One of the things I've noticed, they don't use Bovita bags. They do zip everything up and package it in the most protective way. So you can be assured that nothing's going to get damaged in the transit. But you have to inspect these cigars regardless of where you're getting them from and make sure that they're in good condition and that they're up to par. Uh, so that's one of the sites. They name Hit Cigars, Monte Fortune Cigars, Cigar World, La Casa de Habano, Dusseldorf, Tobacco Contour, which is another La Casa de Habano, Cigar One, Cigars of Cuba, The Cigar, VIP Cigars, and a couple of people in the the threads or in the comments section were, I guess, discussing the list and mostly agreeing with just about all of the sites that Cigar Analysis had selected. And yeah, pretty much everyone agreed, and a few individuals added a few extra sites of their own choices. Uh, One person mentioned Cigar Emporium, and not much more information on that. But ideally, you want a site that's going to have a good reputation. Word of mouth does spread with these sites sometimes. But again, going back to what I said before, there have been instances where a company had a reputation for being legit for like a better part of a decade. And then from one year to the next, reports started surfacing that they weren't getting legit Cubans, that some of them were not Cubans, and that some of them were either Cuban tobacco rolled and, like a house roll or whatever, side roll, and then put a band on it. There were reports of that nature. And then there were reports that they were adding cigars that had Nicaraguan tobacco, blending them. So packaging where they were fraudulent with the way they packaged it and deceptive, but there were people out there scouting codes and they got their UV lights and stuff like that going. So they were able to determine that this company was no longer to be held in high regard and could not be trusted. And so as time goes by, you still have to keep continually checking on that site and making, taking note of any changes that may be occurring. Once you've settled on a site or a place that you feel comfortable ordering from and you've received your packages, billed appropriately, everything was well maintained in transit, everything seemed to smoke pretty well. Normally, I like to put these things away for about a month or two when I get them, but there are exceptions. Sometimes, we just have to have one. So after a few days or a week, we take one out and we try it out. And, it's probably never going to be as good as leaving them there for the next year or whatever. Because that's another thing about Cubans, right? Everyone talks about, well, a lot of times when you buy from some of these sites, what you're getting are kind of like young tobacco and young Cubans, and they need time, and you've got to put them away for a year or two, and some people have the patience to do that, some of us don't. uh, I do, but it's frustrating for me just knowing that I have these beautiful Cuban cigars waiting for me, but I can't touch them yet. And so I maintain a cycle where I keep enough in rotation so that I can smoke, you know, 2 3 year old Cuban cigars in intervals, like, and it works for me. But sometimes I'm limited to how many I'm going to have available, and a lot of it has to do with getting them, finding authentic Cuban cigars. It sounds easier than what it actually really is. I think a lot of you that are in Canada watching this, or in some part of Europe watching this, or in anywhere other part of the world where you can basically buy a Cuban cigar at a authorized dealer, Habanas SA, and you're probably looking at me and saying, "Dude, I'm not gonna keep watching this video because uh, I'm not in your predicament, and I'm not. Maybe I'm not sympathetic to the American cigar public, and I don't care that they can't get any Cubans. But they've been compensated with great Nicaraguan and Dominican tobacco, which is true, very true. But I think to myself sometimes that it's probably better to have some sympathy because you never know when your luck will run out, right? I mean, there are a lot of countries right now imposing smoking bans, and this has become a hot topic as well. And the laws are changing and so forth. Cigar prices are going up another, I think, 3 5%, something like that, and they've been going up slowly but steadily. And I think that for the time being, we're probably not going to see any outrageous increases or anything like that. But when it comes to buying Cuban cigars, you already know that you're probably going to be paying a lot of money. And if you're paying a lot of money, once again, you want to make sure that they're authentic. There's another site called, I think it's EMG, and it's also considered a site that you can trust. I've heard it mentioned quite often that it's pretty decent. Uh, LCDH Customs. They were once playfully known as Amazon of Customs, but reportedly Amazon did not find that to be very funny, and they had to come up with a new name. So it was LCDH Customs, and the previous name that they had at Amazon of Customs, that wasn't an official name. That was just something that stuck. And Ramez Suleiman, who handles the day-to-day operation for LCDH, and I've met him, I can say that I was present during a really a great moment for me where I got to meet Alejandro Arias, the famous Cuban roller, who happened to be there with Ramez, and some people call him Ramsey. Uh, Ramsey, and he seems like a stand-up guy to me. This, one thing that I want to say is that this isn't a paid sponsorship. This isn't an infomercial. This isn't anything like that at all. This is a brother of the leaf speaking with you guys, talking with you, ladies and gentlemen, about a topic that really does come up often. I mean, the Cuban cigar is like the Rolex of the cigar industry. It's held in that high regard. Does it mean? I mean, does Rolex make the best watches on earth? No, it does not. It makes some really good ones and some iconic ones, and it has a lot of legacy and heritage, very much so like Cuban tobacco, which goes way back, right? And when you think about the place that Cuban tobacco has in being the motherland, in spawning so many different type of things, I mean, I'm wearing a micro brand indirect homage watch to the Rolex Submariner. I know that, okay? And in many ways, when you look at cigars that are paying tribute to Cuba in their flavor profile, the different cigars that are either direct homages or indirect homages to the Cuban cigar profile. So it's the same in the watch world, where you have indirect and direct homage. So that's where you have that, because it is such an iconic thing that it draws that kind of attention. Doesn't have to be the best all the time. It's just the legacy and the reputation that you build up over time. And mind you, everybody's had their ups and downs, right? All of these regions that produce tobacco, they've all gone through some ups and downs, from Nicaragua to the Dominican Republic. And perhaps in a lot of ways, we can look at the Dominican Republic as a very, very excellent model of how efficiently they did it and set it up, and it was less problematic. But there's still other issues regarding that. We're not going to get into that now. This particular site, I trust. LCDH Customs, I trust them. I do. Uh, they offer authentic custom rolled cigars. And if you don't know what a custom rolled cigar is, custom rolls are cigars that are normally found at the hotels in Cuba. So you've got different hotels. They've got a house roller. They may have more than one. And actually, yeah, it's been reported that some of the La Casa del Habano SA official dealer stores actually have a house roller as well. I can't confirm that, but I can say that in Cuba you have these hotels and they do have these house rollers, and they offer custom rolls. And these custom rolls are made in a certain way to either imitate a certain Cuban cigar in either direct or an indirect way, either through the size, the vitola size, or just in some of the flavor profile that you might expect. So if you expect more body, you may get more body in a certain custom roll that is custom rolled according to, say, a certain vitola size, like bejique. So they'll use words like bejique. To us, we think of bejique as, cohiba bejique, which is a super expensive cigar. But in the world of custom rolls, they consider the bejique to be a certain vitola size. It indicates a certain vitola size. It's either 54 or 56 ring gauge by 6 inches or 6.5 inches, something to that size. So they have these other names where they name them, they'll say Trinidad, and then it'll be LE2 or something like that, where it's not the same name, but it gives you an idea of this is what this cigar may offer. And I know if a lot of you are out there, you're thinking to yourself, I probably should just stick to trying to get the authentic thing, right? Just stick to buying the Montecristo number twos and finding the Ramon Ayones that I can find. And, that's great. That's fine. You can do that. Please do. And do so carefully. But there are other options as well. And if you can assure yourself that the cigars you're going to get are authentic Cuban cigars, then you can have some peace of mind, even if it doesn't have a band on it. So custom rolls are shipped without a band. And this particular site, they sell in 5 counts, and they sell them in, I think, 20 counts. And shipping, tell you about shipping, it's free shipping on all orders above $100. I thought that was pretty cool, that I didn't have to pay for shipping. And I'm gonna show you. This is a reenactment, of course, of how my package arrived. Just share that with you. So it came in this outer, and then I peeled it off, and then it was another bubble wrap USPS, and then inside of that there was a box. Obviously, it was sealed in good condition. Once I opened it, inside there was also, I believe there was also a Bovita pack, and I may have already moved it, but there you go. And I think, okay, price-wise, because I know that's going to come up, right? Price-wise, you're going to probably be looking at an average of about $20 per cigar when you buy it this site. And I know a lot of people are going to say that's pretty expensive. I can get the actual Cuban brands for less, and maybe I got to pay shipping, but I can do that. Yeah, you can do that. That's fine. And especially if you don't have to worry about living in America and having to order through the gray market and deal with the different sites, then custom rolls should probably be something that will either not be that expensive where you're at, and definitely something that you would just do once in a while, right? Because it's available, and it can be very good because some of these people, some of these individuals that are rolling these cigars actually have worked at the factories where they made the authentic Cuban cigars with the bands. Now, this is still an authentic Cuban cigar. It's just doesn't have a band. It's a custom roll. I'll get more into what custom rolls are in a moment. Before I tell you more about the actual cigar that I'm smoking, I want to tell you a little bit more about custom rolls. Now, I know I was telling you, but this has been plucked from Cigar Inspector, courtesy of Cigar Inspector. What is a Cuban custom roll? Custom rolled cigars of Havana. That is to say, cigars rolled by the hands of people who have been recognized as being masters in their field and given a post at one of the several cigar shops scattered across the city of Havana, Cuba. What is the criteria used when choosing who will get one of these positions and exactly who is the one doing the choosing? That is something I don't know and probably never will. I can tell you that once they have this position of privilege, they keep it until they retire. It affords them an opportunity to earn some extra money in the form of gratuities, since they sell their cigars directly to the buyers, and at one time they were sent around the world to roll in cigar shops as ambassadors for Cuban cigars. Now, this still does actually happen. Alex Arias was just that. The latter of the two privileges was recently stopped by the new direction. It was a way to see the world at the cigar shop's expense, and once again, it gave them an opportunity to earn some extra money. So they earn a little extra money, a little bit more liberty, and they bring that to us. They travel. Besides the extra money in traveling, working conditions are also a plus. Compare a hot factory with a comfy air conditioned cigar shop. Finally, as long as they continue to put out a good product, the pressure of having to roll so many cigars in one day was no longer hanging over their heads. In a cigar factory, each roller has a certain quota he or she has to meet that day, depending on the cigars that are being rolled. In the case of the rollers in the cigar shops, they just need to set top up the selection they have in in their humidors or fill orders for the regular customers who come to visit a few times a year, but that still gives them plenty of time to produce what is needed at any given time. So there's better working conditions, which I think I've mentioned before when I talked about Alex Arias and his position. Uh, he indicates that it took him a long time to appreciate a custom rolled cigar, but once I started getting into them, I fell in love. In my opinion, they are some of the best rolled cigars in the country. That's not saying that Cuba doesn't have some exceptional rollers in their factories as well, but you don't get to choose the roller when you buy a box of cigars at the store. So, who is the best? That is a matter of personal opinion and taste. They're all good, but each one brings something special to the table. And they have the personality that makes you come back to him or her. There are a few to choose from. There are world renowned rollers, and they're in Havana, and some work in other parts of the country. The rollers everyone talks about work in the big city. That's always been the center of the cigar trade. And Alejandro Gonzalez Arias, Hotel Comodoro, is mentioned. Leopoldina, Yolanda Medina, Maria, known just one name, I believe, Maria. Jorge Lopez, Juanita Ramos, and these are a list of all stars within the rolling community, in the rolling business. So Alex did explain a lot to me about custom rolls, and he was there vouching for Ramsey of LCDH, and so that mattered a lot to me as well because I had a conversation with Alex and we were able to talk about some things and the quality of the tobacco. The tobacco is aged 3 years, all of it. And of course, Cuban puro. There's just no denying that this is a Cuban cigar. And it's medium body right now. It's creamy, it's smooth, a little hint of cedar spice in the finish, almost like a soft sandalwood. That a little bit of the saltiness, but not too much. It's a really soft salt, and but that creaminess up front, really complementing it. It's been wonderful with this cigar so far. I'm not, and here's another thing I want to tell you about this cigar, and that is that I got these cigars last week. I got them. I think I got them on Friday of last week, but they haven't been in the humidor since probably I'm gonna say Monday morning, perhaps Monday morning. They went into the humidor. It was either Monday morning or Sunday morning. But my point is, they've only been in my humidor for a couple of days. I shouldn't be smoking this right now. Normally I wouldn't, but I wanted to share this with you, light one up with you, and let you know what I'm thinking about the cigars. Have I smoked some of their cigars in the past? Yes, I have, but not this particular one. And I'm going to tell you about this particular one. And this particular cigar has a name. Now, you've got a variety of cigars on their site that have different names, like El Laguito Trinivilla, El Laguito Fundadores, El Laguito La Gloria Cubana, Medalla de Oro, uh, El Laguito Novedoso, 2019 edition. So you've got quite a selection. So this one is called Trinidad LE22 Cabildos, and it is 6.1 by 49. Again, the tobaccos used here are about 3 years old. When people ask me about aging Cuban cigars, um, I always say that the consensus has been for so long that they you put them down for at least a year, not unlike probably in the same way that you might buy a certain expensive Belgian quad, and they recommend to cellar it for 1 year before enjoying it. And a lot of times, what we do, right, or we just buy two or multiples, and that way we can enjoy them at different points in time. But usually, a year is a good amount of time to let it rest. Many folks that I know that are deep into Cuban cigars don't do anything under 3. And this is so we're talking about the cigar now being in your humidor for 3 years. That some people set up a dedicated humidor, and they kind of like put it out of sight, out of mind, so they don't think about too much. And like I said, when you develop enough of the aged Cubans, then you can kind of ration them out from year to year, and then just re-up as you go along. Sort of the way they age whiskey barrels, I guess. Now, this is intended to be a medium-bodied cigar, little bit of spice, some cream, all working really good. Little saltiness uptick right now. Some woodsy notes as well. So, what people are saying, I think, when you go online, like as I said before, you have to research everybody. Nobody gets a pass. And in my case, I had the benefit of actually meeting the man, Suleiman, and actually interacting with his employees, and of course trying the cigars. And so it was a lot easier for me to make up my mind. I think I'm a pretty good judge of character. When I meet individuals, you know, having come from Brooklyn, we saw all kinds of BS and con guys, and we knew the deal when we were confronted with that. So I really didn't get that vibe from him at all. It was very professional, very transparent, and there are some things that obviously you can't be transparent about. The number one question I get is, How the heck is this legal? How are they doing this? How is this possible? And it's a good question. So, in an email, I posed that question to Ramsey Suleiman of LCDH Customs, and he said he'd been very fortunate to have met the right individuals and dealt with the right cigar men within Cuba, and he's done right by them in his interactions with them. And so, over the course of time, when they've built up trust, they went into business and they were able to provide tobacco. Now, how? First of all, it's legal. That's number one. Number two, it's a loophole. This is my theory here, that it's a loophole, and this is a shrewd businessman who knows what he's doing. He's not going to say what it is, because if he does say what it is, then every Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to try to do the same thing and mess everything up. I do believe that there are other companies that do have a similar business model as he does. I read of a few that were pretty reputable. I don't remember them right now, but I've never done business with them, so I can't say to you that they're on the up and up. I just read some good things. I did check some sites, and I looked at the prices, and they were a lot higher than they were at LCDH Customs. So I thought to myself, whoa, they're charging a lot more, and shipping is definitely a lot more expensive, crazy shipping. So those things take into consideration. And we're talking about custom rolls, Cuban custom rolls. So it was important for me to know that this was legit. And so in our communications, he expressed his desire to be transparent. I mean, he says, I'm an open book. I'm not doing anything wrong. Basically, he's not running for cover or anything like that. He's operating within strict guidelines that potentially only he and a few others know about. And I don't really care to know the mystery as to how he's doing it, because what I do know is that within just a few days of ordering my package, it arrived. It arrived safely. It arrived in good condition and good looking cigars. Authentic. Hell yeah. Wonderful aroma. Really fills up the room. It's just really nice. So everyone has to do a little homework to make sure, like I said, year to year, that the company that they're getting something from is, you know, not deceiving you. And I think that with the customer service level, that's another issue. That's another thing that you want to look at. I've like I said, I dealt with a few others, and the customer service was a little choppy, and it wasn't as quick. And when you get that lightning fast customer service where you get a response very quickly, and they're the vendor is attentive to your needs and your requests or your concerns, things go so much better. Again, peace of mind. You can't overlook it. They're expensive. Cuban cigars in general are expensive. I mean, I think you might say that there are some individuals that are in some lucky spots where they can probably have a larger selection of some of the smaller brands or things like that of that nature, and they can enjoy those cigars for a cheaper price. But they're going up every year, and Cuban cigars are not going to be something that you would say to yourself, "This is a bargain," because it's not. And when you have this at your you know disposal, the ability to purchase a $50 or a $40 Cuban cigar, regional, limited regional, edición limitada. You know, these things, some of these can be really great cigars and they age so well. They just do. Yeah, nice. I mean, you know, it's at the body that I expected it. It's a pure medium, and I'm a guy that likes a more full-bodied cigar. There are other options where you can get a more full-bodied cigar, but I kind of wanted to have just a nice cigar that I could smoke in the morning or early in the day, and this really fits the bill. Smooth, creamy. I just wanted you to have an up and close and personal look at the cigar. 6.1 by 49. It feels almost like a 50 in hand, and definitely smooth, slightly toothy. But a beautiful looking cigar. And they all look the same. This is actually another one I just took out. It's got a little bit of an oily sheen to it, more so than the other. But construction seems pretty much the same. I mean, it's very similar. There are no minor variations, perhaps, in the toothiness, but that's about it. Very consistent. The question is how to find authentic Cuban cigars. And the answer to that would be number one, to be extremely careful. Number two, do some research. Look up the sites. Unless, of course, once again, this is you're exempt if you live somewhere where you have a Habanos SA authorized shop around the corner from you. You're exempt. And and I'm happy for you. Very. But hey, listen, it's been said, and I said it earlier, some people would say, hey, yeah, we've got all these Cubans, but we don't have access to those wonderful Nicaraguan cigars or some of those wonderful Dominican cigars that you folks get. So it works both ways sometimes. But I think a lot of people just feel so content with the Cuban product that, you know, they can forget about the fact that they might be missing out a little bit on some of the Nicaraguan stuff. And vice versa, right? Because I mean, the majority of my life I've been smoking Dominican and Nicaraguan with some Honduras. And it isn't up until maybe recently that in maybe the last decade that we can look at the rise of, you know, the Brazilian tobaccos and some of the other tobaccos from different regions like Colombia, and now the resurgence of Puerto Rico, and of course the forbidden fruit for us Americans, Cuban tobacco. Do your research, do your homework, keep tabs on your vendors. If you have authentication devices or, you know, protocol, use it for when you get your shipment. Use a trusty credit card, of course, and a number of things that I think, as long as you're aware of something that looks like it's too good to be true, too low a price, too good a deal, these are things that can set off an alarm. And once you get comfortable and you get very experienced in purchasing from different sites, perhaps, and you can have a little bit more confidence in your vendor, then you can probably feel that your money isn't going towards something that isn't of high quality. So this here, the one thing about it, I have it's a slightly conservative draw, but I'm really going to chalk that up to the fact that hey, it's only been in the humidor for a few days after travel and transit and being going through the freezing process. And despite all of that, it's burning very well. It still tastes really good. sweetness, with some creaminess. I mean, I can just imagine what this is going to be like in a year or two. And that's why I got several. But, look, guys, it everything in life is a risk. I think sometimes, we forget that nothing is a given, right? And it's easy to forget that when you're in the routine and such. And if you really want to be sure about, the people that you're going to give your money to, then it's worth the added research. I always say that it's good to stay, um, it's good to have the information, the knowledge, and stay aware. So I want to thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed the information, and I hope it will be useful and helpful to you. And until next time on Backyard Cigars, thank you.